Hello there. Well, my name is Rafael Grossman and I'm a surgeon. I also have this deep passion for how to use technology in a smart way in order to improve what we do in healthcare and what we do in education. For many years now, I've been exploring the fields of telehealth, telemedicine, wearables, how to use artificial intelligence algorithms in medicine, and also how to use gadgets that initially were designed and created for play, how to use those gadgets in order to potentially save lives. Back in the days when we were using iPod touch devices to connect different healthcare centers of the telehealth network in order to provide acute trauma consultations. That started a career of discovering exponential technologies for an exponential era, right? 21st century already. That brought me to Singularity University and the Future Med program, which is now morphed into exponential medicine. There I met the inventor of Google Glass, and very shortly after that I brought Google Glass to the operating room. It was the first time that an operation had been done live with the use of Google Glass, and all I was doing was trying to show students my perspective of the operating field and connecting with my students remotely to bring them to my perspective and to my point of view again, talking to them, answering questions, asking questions. So the potential of this device that was back then very sexy and popular to improve how my students would really learn. So that got me to become somewhat of an evangelist, a preacher of how disruptive technologies can be used creatively to transform how we do healthcare and education. I think that it's important that we think out of the box, that we jump out of the box. I think that it is really important that we not just practice that we not just preach that, but we also train the next generation of students, the next generation of providers to have this mindset, to have this mind frame. For the last several years, I've been tapping the field of virtual reality, right? What is virtual reality? Well, basically being immersed in a digital world, a world where you're completely isolated from the real world, but you can be completely immersed in an experience. Could be an experience to control your pain and your anxiety perioperatively, which is something that has been used for the last few years. And some of the pioneers on this are the Cedars-Sinai people with applied VR and embodied VR and many other companies out there that are creating immersive experiences in order to control pain and anxiety perioperatively. From that to trying specific treatments like PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. You know, there's been an explosion of software applications. XR Health, for example, is got a great platform that is also being a successful business model, I believe, and also a very innovative way of engaging, you know, patients, providers, and administrative, you know, the payers, in order to make real interesting and positive use of these platforms to prevent and treat disease. From there, we can go to AR, right? Augmented reality, where you basically have a digital reality superimposed to a physical or real world, and you can have devices, tablets, you know, mobile portable computers like this one, smartphones with AR Core or AR Kit enabled, that you can see this reality basically through the screen, superimposed to the physical world. And when you can manipulate this reality, you get into what we call XR, or mixed reality, right? So it's something that is evolving very quickly. You know, when we talk about mixed reality, we have to talk about MXR, or medical XR, medical mixed reality. I recently, a few months ago, was the keynote speaker at the FDA conference on VR in healthcare, and you know, that term of MXR was coined. I think that this is happening, and it's just the natural progression of the of computing. You know, just like we had computers that filled up a room before with very little power, to computers now that are in our rings, that are in our watches, that are in our glasses. Like this is the Vuzix Blade glass. Right? Spatial computing is sort of the culmination, the fourth era of computing, where computing was done in MS-DOS platforms, right? Black and white, typing on the screen, to the graphic user interfaces that the desktop, the Apple desktop, brought to the touch platforms that we still use today, you know, in tablets and smartphones. But now to devices like, for example, the Magic Leap, right, which allow you to compute, right? Compute in this space, right? You are looking at, or you are manipulating a 3D image, and you can be there watching a movie, and you can be there answering your email. So the space around you is a desktop, and you manipulate that space with, interact with that space with gestures. That's what spatial computing is. So this is real. This is happening. This is not just a game. This is being used in all sorts of applications. Where from the VR side of things, you have companies like Fundamental VR, for example. There are other companies as well, but companies that are creating digital environments for you to try something before you become an expert, right? To increase your learning and your performance until you become an expert before you try on a real human, on a real patient, just like the pilots would do that on a simulator flight. The same thing, but for surgery, for example. The incredible feature, I think, of that Fundamental VR offers is that not only you are immersed in the experience and you have a device in front of your face, like the Oculus Quest, for example, but you also have the possibility to share that experience simultaneously with other viewers. So they're all participating, you're all connected, you are communicating, but you are in a virtual space. And not only that, you can add the tactile component. Haptics is very important, I think. I think that the more senses you bring to the experience, the more real the experience can be, despite some literature that suggests that the learning is not enhanced by the haptic feeling. I really think that the more senses, the better. So when the experience is completely is totally immersive, then the better retention, the better learning, the better comprehension. And that has been proven clearly, not just the full senses, but the fact that VR improves learning and comprehension and retention compared to traditional education. Devices like the HoloLens, for example, that really can transport you, like the Magic Leap, to a real world enhanced with digital imagery, and you can interact with those imageries. You have companies like Philips and HoloLens that have created, and this is a rendering of that in the cardiac invasive suite. Dr. Atul Gupta demonstrating how you can have several screens in front of you in the space and not distract you from the actual the actual patient by looking at a screen at a computer. No, you can have basically the screen in front of you as you need it. So I think that you know, we are going really very, very fast. The technologies are developing certainly in a very exponential manner, and there is no way that we can escape this, and we need to embrace these changes. We have to fully embrace these changes, also not just when we do medicine, but when we teach medicine. We need to change the way we teach medicine, we educate the next generations. And this field of digital health, these technologies of VR, AR, XR, you know, wearable devices creating incredible amounts of data. You have devices like the Apple Watch or the Fitbit Sense that can check an EKG or can check a temperature. It can take you know, your activity and your heart rate, or even your levels of oxygen, right? Imagine the potential for that. Imagine in a pandemic like this, and I'm involved in a study where we are checking the progression of my vital signs, my temperature, and symptoms, along with pulse oximetry, to see whether this would be a tool that could potentially predict early, you know, or detect early whether I have been infected with COVID-19, for example. You know, I think that we are right now at a very interesting inflection point in medicine. You know, we have technologies like artificial intelligence, for example, which we've been using for years, but now they're becoming more more of a forefront, breaking news every day, seems like. You know, you have obviously the human input, right? Because the best system is the one that combines the computer or the AI platform with the human. You know, I would say that computers and AI are better than humans, but computers and AI and humans are better than computers and AI systems. That is clear. And when we talk about whether the computers and AI systems are going to replace doctors, I don't think that will happen. But what it will happen is that computers and AI algorithms will replace the doctors who don't embrace these systems. That is very much for clear. It's not about the technology, it is about the smart use of the technology, right? It's not about, you know, a Google Glass that was created to take pictures of your breakfast or you playing around or in a concert, but it's a device that can potentially bring you to the medical record of a patient, and the technology that paradoxically makes you closer to the patient. I think that these devices can humanize, can help us empathize better with our patients, can humanize the medical profession. For the last few decades, maybe a couple of decades, we have had an explosion of digital health, and the digital health itself is very important and has had many benefits to healthcare in regards to the production and documentation and recording of data. But unfortunately, we have separated ourselves from the patients by using digital health. Every time you go to the doctor in countries like ours, or you know, societies that are the fewer in the world, very advanced in the sense of using technology in healthcare, when you go to the doctor, you immediately are, you know, basically you have the doctor not facing you anymore, the provider in the computer looking at things and asking you questions. You're being separated even physically from the provider because of the technology. But if you use the technology in a smart fashion, then you can have devices like, for example, the Blade, and you can have the computer information, the data in front of you, and the patient is there, and you're actually being more direct and human with the patient. paradoxically, this technology can humanize how we do medicine, right? When you need the data is there. You're not looking at the data all the time and distracting yourself. Like if you're driving, you're not looking at the rear view mirror all the time. You're only looking at it when you need to see what's behind you. The same way, paradoxically, the technology is empowering us to be more humans. You can get closer to the patient, you can hug the patient, you can touch the patient, you can laugh, and you can cry with the patient. So the technology is making us better human physicians, and that is very important, and it is because of the smart use of the technology. So that is really very clear in my mind. There's no question about it. We know that 2/3 of the world, and if you look at the Lancet Commission report from 2015, I think it was, 5 billion people, 2/3 of the world's population, don't have access to the healthcare that we take for granted, right? Especially in regards to surgery, we know that 5 billion people don't have access to safe and affordable surgery. And that is a shame. That is a shame because we have the technology, we have the possibility of changing this, and we must act in this regard. Healthcare is a basic human right. And we don't see it as such. We don't act as if that is true. I always say, healthcare is in trouble, and healthcare is in trouble shamefully, because today there's no excuse. Medicine, the amount of mistakes and errors that happen in medicine are shameful. The main problem in medicine is connectivity and communication, and we have the tools in order to improve and enhance how we connect and how we communicate, and that is very important. It's fascinating when we think about companies like Starlink, for example, which is basically blanketing the space around Earth with satellites that will create basically a network of internet to reach areas that never had that possibility. When you think about the potential of 5G with a much wider bandwidth and faster speeds to allow us to basically do magic, right? Exponential technologies, right? When 5G takes on for real, I think that it'll be really exciting. You have almost a year ago, more than a year ago, a group of Chinese surgeons did a remote surgery, robotic surgery, all wirelessly based on a cellular 5G network. They were able to connect a robotic device via 5G cellular connectivity, no Wi-Fi, no internet, right? And they were doing remote surgery in real time with an imperceptible delay, imperceptible for the human senses. So, and that was almost a proof of concept, but it was actually a real surgery. So imagine where we can be. Imagine how we can extend the reach of the expert. We talk about telemedicine and we talk about telehealth and tele-everything, right? We're trying to do telehealth for many decades, and suddenly within a week or so, the COVID-19 epidemic basically made it happen, right? All the barriers and hurdles and obstacles were suddenly, they disappeared. And now in many places of the world, in most places, telemedicine is being sort of rightfully and legally and smartly used in order to connect people. We are actually able to or the system is able to monetize and to have a real visit and a telehealth remote visit being built the same way, which is important, obviously, but it's really about communicating and connecting. I don't talk about telemedicine. I talk about telemedicine as the same thing as medicine, because the tele part is just another tool. I can see you by video. I can talk to you on the phone. I can send you an email. I can see you physically in the office. They're all part of the same of the same spectrum of connection and connectivity between provider, surgeon, doctor, and the patient. A technology called Beam, a company called Aetho, where we can bring avatars to a common space. So I can have basically a HoloLens device, right? Or I can have a Magic Leap device, and I can be in my operating room, and the Magic Leap device is basically bringing you, one or many people, avatars, right? Virtual avatars, but virtual avatars that are physically located anywhere in the world, and that avatar is connecting with me, and we are actually interacting with the same digital and almost physical space. So the immersion of that meeting, of that connection, is almost real. The avatar has a real movement of the lips and the face and the upper body. So you are chatting with someone in your physical space through a magic device like the Magic Leap, for example, or even a smartphone or a tablet or a HoloLens too, and you are doing a teleconference with multiple players, all avatars, representations of real people situated anywhere in the world, as long as you have connectivity. And not only that, but you are also interacting with digital images. I can have 2 or 3 people in my operating room, and these 3, 4, X number of participants, we can all interact with, let's say, a 3D reconstruction of a computerized tomography of the liver, and we can all learn, or we can all basically have the same image, and from our perspective we can look at that liver and discuss what the best approach to the operation is. So it is it's almost short of teleporting yourself, like in the Star Trek movie. I always say that science fiction is really the prediction of what's going to happen in the next few years, and that is true. One of the companies that I advise is called Nanox Vision, and Nanox is creating a portable, low-cost, high-resolution, AI-enabled. Imagine a device that costs $10,000 and is portable, and you can bring it to any location in the world, and you can have access to tomographic images, not through a device that could be hundreds of thousands of dollars and not mobile. Imagine the care, imagine the potential of accessing imaging diagnostics anywhere on earth. That is the paradigm, you know. Changing the paradigm is what we can do today if we act in a smart manner. I'm very active in LinkedIn and Twitter, and I have a blog, a website. I'm happy to continue the conversation with you. I think that we are in exponential times, and we have the exponential technology to make an exponential difference. So with this, I leave you, and I open it for questions, and it's really an honor to be able to talk to you, and thank you to the organizers of this amazing conference.